Hey folks, Matthew Weiss here, WeissAdvice.com. In this video, I want to talk about mixing from an uninhibited perspective. This is going to be the Rick Ross record that I showed last week while I was too sick to talk. I showed the original way that I mixed it, the treatment that ended up making the record and ended up going out. But at the time, there were two things that were kind of inhibiting my process. One is one that is going to always inhibit the creative process a little bit, and that is that I had to appease a client. And anytime that we're doing that, we have to cater our creative impulses to their frame. And that's fine, actually. That can be actually a good thing and can be inspiring. But the other thing that was going on is that I was really in this mindset of trying to prove myself, trying to show that I could create the most pristine sounding vocals, the hardest hitting beats, things like that. And I don't think that that's necessarily a wrong way to go, but it's putting something on the record that isn't inherently there and can be an inhibition on the creative process. So I wanted to jump back to that record and just reimagine it in a way where I don't have to appease a client and I'm not trying to prove anything. What is my creativity going to lead me to do? And it actually kind of led me in an interesting direction. So before I jump in, I do want to mention that while Halloween is over, I was sick while I was trying to promote my Halloween sound design effects tutorial, and so I've decided to extend the sale on it a little bit longer so that I could effectively promote it. You're going to want to check that out. It's in the description below. All right, let's pop on in. So I want to play this without any of the treatment on either the 2-track or the vocal.
Death penalty, the future for a kingpin. Got a suite up at the Ritz for the season. Blonde bitches in the palace like it's Frankie Valley. Rich nigga out in Cali, all black Denali. Got the soldiers in the powder running solar power. Sticks in the bricks and I want them on an hour. Pull up in and living like a lucky bastard. Heavy set, but they really know who run the racket. If she wet, then she might just be the total package. Better yet, then
So I wanted to play that verse a little bit longer than I normally do, just because I wanted you to get a chance to hear the lyrics involved and kind of mix what's being said with the feel of the record. Because if we start from the feel of the record, we can always take things in a better, more creative point of view than if we're trying to just, make vocals sound vocally, make drums sound drum-like, those kinds of things. So I like to start from a place of what does this record paint as far as a picture goes. And I'm hearing something that's very almost like black and white crime noir, detective noir kind of a vibe. Like if I was picturing a music video to this, it might be like something that almost looks like Sin City or one of those 1950s, oh, she walked in and I was smoking a cigar kind of film noir type of things. So with that in mind, I can use that as the basis of inspiration for some sound design and some treatment ideas. Now, if we listen to this vocal and we go from a technical point of view, let me play it.
death penalty, the future for a kingpin. Got a suite up at the Ritz for the season. Blonde bitches in the palace like it's Frankie Valley. Rich nigga out in Cali, all black Denali.
The short of the long is we would probably want to do something like pull up an EQ, maybe cut out any kind of sub that might be there, get rid of some of that darker tone that's hanging out around the lows, something like that. Push up a bunch of the highs because it's a little bit dull sounding, a little dark sounding, something like that. Maybe even pull up a little bit of the super highs. Get something that's probably more or less like this.
Death penalty, the future for a kingpin. Got a suite up at the Ritz for the season. Blonde bitches in the palace like it's Frankie Valley.
And then there's a little bit of like a sort of almost tin can-ish resonance that's kind of hanging out in the mid-range that we probably want to get rid of too. But that would be the basic idea, right? Okay, nothing special there. In fact, let's get rid of this completely. So that would be like a technical balance of the vocal. Now what I want to do is I want to bring on my effects and play it, and then break down where this was coming from and what I'm doing.
Death penalty, the future for a kingpin. Got a suite up at the Ritz for the season. Blonde bitches in the palace like it's Frankie Valley. Rich nigga out in Cali, all black Denali.
All right, so that is definitely not what I just did with that EQ, right? But let's hear it with the record. And I'm going to pull in my effects on the record too, and let's do a quick little before and after.
Death penalty, the future for a kingpin. Got a suite up at the Ritz for the season. Blonde bitches in the palace like it's Frankie Valley. Rich nigga out in Cali.
After.
Death penalty, the future for a kingpin. Got a suite up at the Ritz for the season. Blonde bitches in the palace like it's Frankie Valley. Rich nigga out in Cali, all black Denali.
And what I want to point out is that while it sounds very affected, it sounds kind of rolled off and very like almost like brownish sounding, there's a quality to it, like a sepia kind of a brown sounding. I don't know how else to describe it. There's a quality to it that really seems to work with the record. And I want to point out what that was. It's some very counterintuitive stuff, but it all came from the idea of like going for that film noir kind of concept. All right. So the first thing that I'm doing, I'm using this RC20 retro color, which is a multi-effects kind of thing. It's got EQ, it's got noise, it's got wow, which is pitch modulation, it's got reverb, and I'm using a little bit of all of these things in combination. The most interesting one, I think, is actually the EQ setting. So the EQ setting here, I'm rolling off everything above 4.5K, which is not a usual approach for a vocal, but if we were to go back to something that was older sounding, things tended to be very concentrated in the mid-range. So rolling off top, rolling off bottom would be pretty normal for making something sound vintagey or older. And then I'm compensating for that with a big shelf boost, a 6 dB shelf boost. So I'm rolling off top and then I'm bringing it back, which is just by nature going to change the overall color of the voice.
Death penalty to Future 4 Kingpin. Got a suite up at the Ritz for the season. Blonde bitches in the palace like it's Frankie Valley. Rich nigga out in Cali, all black Denali. Got the soldiers in the powder running solar power. Sticks in the bricks and I want them on an hour.
And you'll notice it kind of shifts the vocal into the upper mid, but in a very vintagey, vibey way. So really good start there. The next thing that I'm doing is I'm incorporating some vinyl noise. I talk about this in my Mixing with Emotion tutorial, which I cannot stress how important of a tutorial that is, even though people don't buy it. But it's way more important than I think any other tutorial because it talks about, you know, finding the heart of a record and making it creative, which is so much more important than like certain EQ techniques and things like that. But one of the things that I associate vinyl with is not only things that are older, but that crackling noise always makes me think of like rain. So putting a little bit of vinyl noise, just a subtle amount in there to kind of make it feel rainy, is kind of a cool vibe for this like film noir crime detective story that we're painting a picture for.
Death penalty to Future 4 Kingpin. Got a suite up at the Ritz for the season. Blonde bitches in the palace like it's Frankie Valley. Rich nigga out in Cali, all black Denali.
Do you hear what I'm saying? Where it doesn't just sound like vinyl, but it also could sound kind of like rain as well. So a little bit of pitch modulation. This just tends to make things sound a little old. It makes things a little smeary, which is good for what we're doing. And a little bit of distortion, because that's going to help emulate the actual componentry of hitting a tape machine. So nothing too crazy there, I don't think.
Death penalty to Future 4 Kingpin. Got a suite up at the Ritz for the season. Blonde bitches in the palace like it's Frankie Valley.
But now it is starting to really sound like it's coming off of some damaged tape. Adding a little bit of space, this almost gives it like a tunnel-like feel. So this, to me, this kind of paints the image of places that have tunnels. So New York, Chicago.
Death penalty to Future 4 Kingpin. Got a suite up at the Ritz for the season. Blonde bitches in the palace like it's Frankie Valley.
You notice how the reverb actually has this kind of like ceramic feel to it. It is more of like a like Lincoln Tunnel kind of a vibe than just like a cavern or, you know, a lush plate or something like that, or a beautiful hall. It has a very specific ceramic like texture, and part of that is from the filtering, but part of it is also just the sound of this particular reverb. Now, it is a rap vocal, and I want it to feel very upfront, so I'm keeping this to a pretty low amount, but it is in there just adding a little bit of color.
Death penalty to Future 4 Kingpin. Got a suite up at the Ritz for the season.
So pretty effecty right there. This is more for just getting the vocal to feel fuller. This is some compression. It's upward compression as well as downward compression, so it's just giving it a little bit more body.
Death penalty to Future 4 Kingpin. Got a suite up at the Ritz for the season. Blonde.
Now, when I play this with the rest of the record.
Death penalty to Future 4 Kingpin. Got a suite up at the Ritz for the season. Blonde bitches in the palace like it's Frankie Valley. Rich nigga out in Cali, all black Denali.
Actually, it works better than it worked while I was actually creating it. now that I'm hearing it. Like, I think that that could go to print like that or to a client like that, and I don't think that it would be a bad thing. But at the time that I was doing it, I felt like it didn't feel completely complete. So I sort of thought to myself, okay, how can I kind of glue this into place a little bit more, bring it home? And I was like, well, why not put it through more tape emulation, right? We already went through one tape emulator. What's to stop us from going to two? So I pulled up another tape simulator, and I'm using this for saturation, for harmonics, for a top-end boost at like 8K, but also doing a mid-range cut at 4K, because I don't want it to be mid-rangey. I want it to be more excited sounding, and even a little bit of compression. So here's our before and after on that.
Death penalty to Future 4 Kingpin. Got a suite up at the Ritz for the season. Death penalty to Future 4 Kingpin. Got a suite up at the Ritz for the season. Blonde bitches in. Death penalty to Future 4 Kingpin.
And let's level match it, actually.
Death penalty to Future 4 Kingpin. Got a suite up at the Ritz for the season.
Yeah, that makes it a little easier to hear the difference. Okay, before, then after.
Death penalty to Future 4 Kingpin. Got a suite up at the Ritz for the season. Blonde bitches in the palace like it's Frankie Valli.
After.
Death penalty to Future 4 Kingpin. Got a suite up at the Ritz for the season. Blonde bitches in the palace like it's Frankie Valli. Rich nigga out in Cali, all black Denali.
So you hear how that kind of lifts the vocal up. It brings in that hair of brightness while at the same time not actually sounding bright. That's going to help it lift above the track and give it that stand-up personality that it needs to really stick out and feel exciting in the tone. So let's play that now with the record.
Death penalty to Future 4 Kingpin. Got a suite up at the Ritz for the season. Blonde bitches in the palace like it's Frankie Valli. Rich nigga out in Cali, all black Denali. Got the soldiers in the powder running solar power.
I think that that sounds really cool. And I want to kind of tie this all up with a sort of philosophical idea here. And that is, the way that I mixed the record the first time, it came out in a way that the clients were happy and it was good, but I don't think that it made the impression that it could have made. This is a lot riskier. I'm doing really weird things. It's a different approach to a rapper who you would never hear like this. I've never heard his vocals processed these way. This is almost more of like a Billie Eilish way of processing a vocal than it is a Rick Ross way of processing a vocal. But if it had come out this way, I think it would have made a stronger impression. And ultimately, I think that that stronger impression would have been better for my resume and credentials than the way that it actually came out. So the be-all, end-all of this, while I did want to walk through all of the technique and the ideology and what I was doing and why and all that kind of stuff, the real core of this is just trying to break away, and I'm guilty of doing it too, but trying to break away from that idea of being impressive as an engineer, of being competitive in terms of making the most pristine or most, competitive or knockiest or whatever, and really just focus into being your best creative self, because ultimately that is what people hire us for. Okay, let's wrap this up. If you dig that if you dig this video, hit that like button. If you want to catch more videos like this, hit subscribe with the bell notification. One more time, that Halloween tutorial is in the description below. It is on sale, and it might just be the inspiration you're looking for if you want to do like a really creative, different processing on a drum break or some ad-lib vocals or something like that. And I'm selling it for $17 right now, so now is the time to grab it. Lastly, you know what we say. We are musicians, sound is our instrument, and I will catch you next time.